Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. To make sure this event is accessible, please, for those who need, you can turn on the closed caption in the lower left corner of your screen. My name is Bernardo Mariano Jr. I'm the Chief Information Technology Officer for United Nations Secretariat, and I'm very pleased to be here today, this morning, for New York time, and afternoon or evening, depending on where you are, alongside our very distinguished panel of speakers for this very important topic. And the topic is Women Leaders and Innovators in Technology. So that's the panel that we have. So today, technology sits at this intersection of many aspects of our life. As we work, how we work and play, how we learn, how we connect, and how we interact with each other, technology is always there as an enabler to realize those excellent, I would say, progress. Technology is also a primary touch point on how we access and how we consume information products, and how we use them, and how we use that for decision making. So as we know, the design of any tool carries the thinking and the mindset of the creator. The world and the tools that we are creating now must reflect the full range of human intelligence, and more importantly, women's viewpoint. This event is a prelude for a celebration of the International Women's Day. So this year, the United Nations, in observing the International Women's Day, recognizes and celebrates the women and girls who are championing the advancement of transformative technology. Today, we will explore the impact of digital gender gaps on widening economic and social inequality, among other related themes that these distinguish women in tech. And I have to say, we are starting this campaign, #WomenInTech, to celebrate the International Women's Day. But the campaign is not just for the day, it's for the whole year. Bringing women and other underrepresented groups into the entire life cycle of technology design and delivery of results allow us to have more creative solutions, less biases, and a greater potential to create this innovation that's required to meet the needs of the entire world population. We do have many obstacles to reach parity and inclusivity in the tech space, but we must work together. As an African proverb says, if you want to go far, let's go together. So the goal is not the goal is not that we can just give up and say, okay, we don't have enough capacity, access, or even the fact that the tech market has, even in developing countries, does not have enough sufficient women. That doesn't mean that we can just afford to give up. Because for our daughters, for our children, and for tomorrow, we need to leave that legacy of having done the best to address this gap. So digital technology continues to open new doors for global empowerment of women, girls, and other marginalized groups, for gender-responsive digital learnings, to tech-facilitated healthcare. The digital age represents an unprecedented opportunity to eliminate all forms of disparity and inequality. And I want to say women have always contributed in the tech industry. From the earliest days of computing to the present age of digital and virtual reality and artificial intelligence, women have made untold contributions to the digital world in which we're increasingly experiencing and living and enjoying it. From Ada Lovelace, who created the first computer program, to Ed Lamar, who designed the predecessor of Bluetooth, to Joy Bolamini, who is the founder of the Algorithmic Justice League, I honor women accomplishment in science and technology. The accomplishments have been often against the odds in the field that is historically and until even now does not necessarily appreciate the contribution of women in the tech. Today's distinguished panelists represent leaders in technology who are using digital innovation to make a difference across areas such as healthcare, digital media, education, delivering of humanitarian mandates such as migration, and delivering of climate change and migration in the United Nations framework. But all in all, women that are contributing to have this digital technology and digital transformation as an enabler for achievement of sustainable development goals. Turning to the moderator, it is my pleasure to welcome our panelists and to introduce our moderator, Kate Krukel, who is been leading project developments in education, agriculture, and technology by bringing together the private sector, non-governmental organization, civil society, and international organization. Kate Krukel worked across the Middle East and Africa, building teams, strategies, and implementation techniques that bridge the variety of demographics and demographics, promoting this sustainable empathy and equality. I've known Kate for many years, met her first when she was working at Microsoft, when I took a team of business colleagues to discuss technology in Microsoft. So Kate currently serves as the director for Consult for Change. Recently, she had positions such as managing director of East Africa startup Sarah Africa, focused on data-driven policies. And Kate is also being a general manager for the UN Digital Solution Center, committed to enhance efficiencies for back office services. Prior to that, Kate spent 12 years at Microsoft when I met her first time as a UN system accountant. So she holds a bachelor's degree in computer science and is an angel investor passionate about social change. Kate, over to you to kick off this distinguished panel.
Thank you, Bernardo, and for that wonderful introduction and opening. It's an incredible pleasure to be with these powerful powerhouse women today. This year's theme for International Women's Day is Digital, Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. What I want to make sure that we do today is we have a very open, honest, vulnerable discussion and Q&A at the end, telling real stories, giving real advice and learnings, and not just simply another Women in Tech event, but try to change it up a little bit. I am honored to be the moderator of this panel, and we'll do introductions in a second. I've known the women on this panel, some for 15 days and some for 15 years. And I can honestly say that every single one of these women has created a lasting impression on me. And my goal today is that you also get that lasting impression. We're going to do the panel, and then we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A, about 10-15 minutes, see how we go. Now on to introduction of our panelists. Ati Riasi, which is currently the Senior Vice President of CIO Hearst in New York. She's worked across both private and public sectors. She was as the Assistant Secretary General of CETO at the UN for 7 years. And she is, if you're not already following her on Medium, she's one of the most innovative, articulate, creative writers in the tech space. Kate McBride, the Director, Administrative Services, Human Resources, ICT Division, the UN Climate Change Secretariat. She holds very many roles there. Kate originally started in finance and has worked her way across various entities within the UN system, from peacekeeping, OCHA, World Food Program, and UN Office of Nairobi. What many of you might not know is that Kate wouldn't be here without me today because she locked herself in a hotel room and I was the only one to let her out. Laura Chite, who is newly appointed board member for Texas A&M, the first African, not to mention, to Texas A&M. She's also the Handovation founder. She's deeply passionate about making genuine impact and working with youth to demystify technology and creating and enabling access for minority communities. And Marietta Mwanga Savume. She's currently the director of ICT for the International Organization of Migration. She's originally from Uganda and has held many positions from the World Bank, UNICEF, peacekeeping, and working in post-conflict areas across Africa. She's deeply passionate about youth and girls and has created one of the best quotes or best statements that I've heard in a long time of working with youth and girls to be unapologetically ambitious and working towards their future in technology. So without further ado, let me start with questions. And I'd like to start with Laura. Laura mentioned you're the founder of Handovation, and there's a few of us on this call that we were able to attend one of the events, which quite honestly was one of the most creative, open, different organizations that I'd ever been to. What made you create Handovation, and how is it different than other women in IT organizations?
Thank you, Kate, and thank you for that great introduction. As you were speaking, I was wondering who you're talking about, but I'll take it all. So, Handovation, first of all, is a word coined out of her and innovation, and ideally, this is supposed to be a women in IT leadership program. And what made me decide to found this program is because I looked around at how many women are in senior positions from a technology perspective, and it was very difficult for me to find them. And I dug further and tried to find out what is the reason as to why women are not growing into senior positions in technology. Because as far as I could see, they had the right technical skills, they could have grown, but there was something that was blocking the way for them. And it was very interesting what I found out. Three things that really made me think deeply around how you can grow in your career. And even from a social perspective, some of the things that can help you open doors for yourself. The first thing is the thing we hear over and over again, which is mentorship. But in this case, this mentorship is around how do women in technology mentor each other from the moment you start your career in technology straight out of college or university, whatever it is, who is holding your hand to help you grow to the next level so that you don't have to make the same mistakes or you don't stall the same way. Secondly, the thing that I found out was very important is networking opportunities. Women in technology hardly have opportunities to network where we can be ourselves, express ourselves, exchange ideas, have our geek talks if we need to have our geek talks, and just be comfortable in our space. And also be comfortable as women in tech where you don't feel like you have to be in a certain way. Appreciate your womanhood as a woman in technology. You don't have to behave like a man. So this was very important because I was trying to create a space where women in technology would be comfortable being women and also be comfortable being in the technology space, which in very many cases we do realize is dominated by men. And the last thing that actually, as Bernardo was giving his opening remarks, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, this is a man after my own heart, is the soft skills. When I talk about soft skills, I realize that for us women, it's very difficult for us to pitch ourselves, tell your story. We had him mention so many amazing women who've done amazing stuff in technology, but who has told their story? Have they told their own stories? I mean, we hardly hear about them. So it is important for us women to be able to tell our stories of the amazing things we've done from a technology perspective and not shy away from it. So from a soft skills perspective, some of the things that I focus on from a Handovation perspective is storytelling, public speaking, negotiation skills. How do you put your pitch together? Brand. How do you build your brand? How do people look at you out there? When you're engaging in a mentorship opportunity, how are you engaging in that opportunity? Besides mentorship, who is your sponsor? Who is sitting at the table when decisions are being made? Who will tell your story in a very comfortable way and put that story, present it in a way that somebody will say, aha, I want to hear a little bit more about that person. Who's that lady that I've never heard of? So those are the three focus areas that made me look and think about Handovation And it's got nothing to do with technical skills. It's all around what are the soft things that come naturally to us women that we can take advantage of but are shying away from. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Laura. On that same note, I think that's so important to have those mentors, those other female counterparts and male that help amplify your voice. Um, Kate, you've certainly navigated through and up the UN system, and you have, I think, 7 roles within UNFCCC right now, but have also worked across FAO, WFP, peacekeeping, OCHA. How have you navigated into new organizations and new roles? And I know one of your passions and one of the aspects that you said, which I love, is that to always pull someone with you, whether it's into a meeting, whether it's into an event. So as you've navigated through these new organizations, how do you find time for that passion to bring spotlight to others and focus on amplifying the voices of other women within these organizations?
Thank you for the question, Kate. And I think it ties nicely into what Laura is saying. One of the ways that I've navigated in, and it hasn't always been up, so I think that's important too, right? Is as we move and we make connections and networks, we're looking to support ourselves in successful projects, in successful communications, and then possibly go out. But what's really important, I think, too, is we're telling our story. We're also telling the stories of the others around us and helping put the spotlight on perhaps the less vocal, the one that doesn't have the personality, be it a man or a woman, but help them understand that they have skills and qualities that are important to the delivery of the organization. So one way I've really navigated is I've kind of considered it as being sort of an organized collective ambition. Where do I want to be? And then who do I want to be there with? Yeah. And sometimes I've gone places because I like who's there and I want to work with them and experience that. And in other cases, I've been places where I've looked around and I've said, this person would be a good fit. How do we, I think this is what Laura was saying, how do we help that individual move into this space? So this sense of all for one and one for all, I guess, in a way, has been part of my navigational tool that I have used. And I think the importance of this sense of responsibility as leaders, yeah, that it's not just, hey, wow, we've made it, but to remember what we had to do, and hopefully it becomes easier with time to move along. But I do think it's important to say what we have achieved and those around us, yeah, who helped us achieve it, but how are we going to help others around us achieve it is important. So really my phrase there is I'm helping the other colleagues is sort of this organized, where do I want to go, but it's a collective approach in the ambition.
Thanks, Kate. And one of the some people that are my friends here sometimes say, they ask how you met, and one of the jokes now is that I'm a stalker, and I'm fine doing that. That I find powerful women, interesting women, and I stalk them on LinkedIn, and I follow up with them and say, how can I have a coffee to build my own network? And just like you're saying, Kate, of who are the people, who are those rooms that you want to be in, and those people that you want to be with. Now, Marietta, you're from Uganda. You've had many roles across the African continent and in post-conflict situations. And I know one of your, many passions is working with youth and girls. And you mentioned something called, sometimes you're often the power of being the gap filler for women if they don't have that. As you've worked in different locations, and especially in different cultures, different continents, how do you see your method of engaging girls and women? And do you have a specific approach that works for you that you would suggest with others?
Thanks. I think the quick answer is no. What I've found as I've gone around is a lot of women are the same. We whether we come to our passion because we want fame or fortune, humanitarian action, adventure and innovation, even security and stability of work. It's the whole idea that am I seen? Is there room for me to grow? And can I plant that proverbial flag on the moon? So across and I've worked, as I've traveled, I've found that it's the same across the board. We very much want to do, especially in the tech world, we want to do what's new. We want to discuss what's new. We want to be recognized for that. And really, I started this because even when I started with the UN, I didn't have anybody to talk to about IT. There was nobody like me. There was nobody that perhaps understood where I had come from, understood the needs of tech in my particular country or in the spaces that I had been. And I thought, it would actually be nice to create communities of people that can grow together. So that's where I started. I joined the UN when I was 24. There was nobody in my space at the time who could sort of relate to where I was or where I wanted to go. And so I kind of began to think about, well, what does it look like specifically for tech for women, but specifically tech for women, women of color? What does it look like? What's our space? What are the sorts of things that we grapple with? Are they any different from other people? Typically not, but I think there are a number of areas where perhaps it's differentiated. And one of them, I think, that I found was the cultural aspect of what are we expected to do as especially African women in tech. We are supposed to generally be quiet and not be ambitious. And I found that every time I stood up in a room where there were 15, 20, 80 men, there was that sense of, the first recognition was that I was doing a job a little under what I was either there as a secretary or was there as somebody's assistant. But the second one was, who am I and what am I saying? So there was that recognition of, suddenly people look at you and they're like, who is she? And so I thought that it was okay to actually be ambitious. I had to get comfortable with myself to say it's okay to be ambitious. I don't apologize for wanting to have a seat at the table. I actually don't apologize for having a seat at the table now. And that's what we as women should, I suppose, aim for. And it's in some of these things, it's not typical. I mean, it's not only for, say, African women. I think all women, and not just in IT, all women almost apologize for sort of being there or feel the need to explain ourselves, if you like. And what I found is to try and be comfortable not to explain ourselves. It's okay. I actually earned my place at the table. I've worked hard and these are the things I've done. I have earned my place at the table. And so how do I go about doing that? Sometimes people do want to, but either they've been burnt, they've had a bad experience, they have been, looked over so many times, and especially in the UN where youth does not necessarily, it's changing now, but for many years, youth did not mean wisdom. And so often you were not even called upon because either of your age, the amount of time that you had been in service and so on. And so trying to think about these talented women who are perhaps looking at me to say, and waiting for me to use my position and opportunity to change the game for them. And to say, come to the table, help us to bridge the gap, be the amplifier for the things that we can do, be the equaling voice for the ambition that we have, and also the thought leadership that we bring to the table, so that it would be okay to have, I don't know, a 26-year-old sit at a table with ASGs and USGs and actually speak truth to power. And it would be okay. How do you get women comfortable with that sort of position? And so what I've been trying to do is to say, my approach is really threefold. One is to identify and understand who are these women that are hungry. We understand that some people are quite happy and not willing to sort of get out of their comfort zone. That's okay too. I think that should also be celebrated. But there are those who actually want to do it. They just don't know how. And so those are the ones that I say, well, okay, take the risk and be curious. What do we need to start doing? Understand that you're the CEO of your career and we are only supporters, advisors in a supporting role somehow. But also to understand that you have to risk and bet on yourself. So ultimately, we work for organizations, but these organizations owe us a paycheck. Everything else is for you to fight for. And within that, what does it look like for you? It looks very different. Some people it's education, some people it's extra work, some people it's you mentioned earlier about writing and Ati being a tech writer. Maybe that's the skill you need to develop. It's really looking at us and saying, what is the skill that you think you require to move you into the next step, and what are those aspects that you have to be responsible for as an individual. But also when you think about, say, mentoring with people that are already in the space, what do they bring to the table? They will amplify your voice, yes. They will create space for you to act. They'll probably give you some visibility. Like Laura said, what do? We make sure that there is connection. We use our social networks to create to connect younger people and so on. And then the other one, I think, is to say, understand that quote unquote life's not fair. So you do actually have to put in the effort and to make sure that you, I wouldn't say fight for yourself, but yes, actually do fight for yourself, because there are loads of women, and it's not just the men and the women, there are loads of women. So how do you differentiate yourself even among the women? Beyond the mentor that you might get, the coach that you might get, even the sponsor, because oftentimes you do need a sponsor in places where we are. Right now, for example, I'm looking at a lot of UN women under 30. And like I said, there are not many women under 30 that work for the UN. And even when they do come in, they come in fairly junior. And so one of the things that I'm doing is getting those women up and saying, you already can come to the table. And a lot of the practices that I'm practicing with the girls and the women that I mentor and coach are some of the things that both Laura and Kate have mentioned. It's come with me to a meeting. Watch what other people do, not just myself, but what other people do. Where do you see yourself in this? And actually forcing them to have a hard look at where they are, where they want to go, and charting up a map of where they want to go, understanding that they're driving it and who needs to help them along the way. And I'm finding that for a lot of women, they are able to at least the ones that I have come into contact with and the ones that I'm mentoring or even suggesting to others to mentor, is they have been able to come to realization of exactly how to get there. It's not easy. It's not a bed of roses, absolutely. But I think there's a greater confidence in I can do this. And I think that's probably the big push that I certainly want. Because in the beginning, like I said, when I started, you despaired of, could you actually do this? And it's important to have other voices that can not only show you the way, but potentially can show you options to get there. And then maybe the last thing I always say to people is that we look at yourself always as a technologist. I look at myself as a woman in tech. I work for IOM. I've worked for the World Food Programme. I've worked for UNICEF, but I'm primarily a woman that does tech, and I can do it anywhere. And so to be open to say, my career is essentially the earth. My career is not limited to IOM specifically. And I think for a lot of the women on this call, we've worked and done loads of things. And to be able to be open about that and not to be afraid to change or to move on or to actually apply your tech in a different place. And maybe I'll stop there, as I think I've said plenty.
Thank you, Marietta. So since this is obviously a Women in Tech panel, and during this time, I don't think it would be a complete panel if we didn't talk about this famous ChatGPT. Now, Ati, I know, so this question is directed to you. I know we're seeing so much hype about technologies like AI and ChatGPT. It's going to it's going to solve the world's problems, bring peace on earth. But then it's going to take everybody's jobs. We're a little apprehensive about it. We're excited about it. But at the same time, we don't really quite understand the significant risks to privacy and security. So how do you view your role and our role as women leaders in this space in tackling this type of technology and around the safety and security aspect?
So thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I want to just give a big shout out to Suzanne for coordinating, for you for moderating, and to my dear friend Bernardo for being the chair of this group and my wonderful panelists. I'm sitting here just being inspired as I listen to them. What a wonderful group of women. I do want to start with something Bernardo said, which is the tools we create must reflect human intelligence, especially women. That is so important because, you know, our industry is lopsided. I always say we need more women, as women think differently. And unfortunately, the number of women in technology is around, I don't know, 20%. Actually, it's less than when I went to college. And we are more consumers of tech than contributors of tech. And when you think about the advancements in technology, something like artificial intelligence and machine learning, they pose broad disruptions and change to our society, to our culture, to our economy, to our politics, to our way of life. They could be extremely positive in terms of addressing social issues that we care about. They could have unintended consequences, which you pose around security and privacy, which we don't fully understand. So, you know, it is a moment in history to me, right? When you think about artificial intelligence, there's been so much technology that's happened for us to get to this moment. If you look at advancements in IoTs, in facial recognition, cloud computing, blockchain, robotics, Web 3.0, 3D printing, quantum computing, if you think about all of those, they got us to this point, which we call the fourth revolution. And we can't have a fourth revolution without women being fully participating. And if you think about a culture of innovation in Silicon Valley, the culture of innovation is that in Silicon Valley, they believe information wants to be free. And there's a second belief that they have, which is anti-secretly liberalism. So when we look at tech, we see this technology that's coming in that allowing information to be free, and there are no secrets. And if there are no secrets, there is no security, right? Why do we build things for security? But because we want information to be free and we want to have no secrets. Now, you can have philosophical debates about these things because a lot of the way we think about the internet and tech belongs to the age of Confucius. And we need to begin to rethink about some of those issues around data, content, privacy, security. What does it mean? The fact is that with the explosion of internet, the governments lost power around securing their citizens in a way they understood. They could secure them in a physical world. They can't necessarily secure them in a virtual world. That is a big issue. If you think about human trafficking, right, over 40 million people trafficked, over 70% of women and girls, most of the commerce for human trafficking is in the dark web. So what happened? Maybe they had some protection in the physical world, but in a digital world, in a dark web, the protection is gone. Identity of people has been stolen multiple times, right? We have seen so much crime, so much espionage shift in a space that's completely uncontrolled. So that's where we are today. We haven't even talked about artificial intelligence and impact of it. But if you look at technology, and let's look at AI as kind of a species and human species, we are, I think, evolving to a point that we can have co-evolution, technology, human machine, silicon, carbon, right? Human evolution, where we kind of become a new species through this fourth revolution. Women participating fully in that process so they can think about ramification. They can think about unintended consequences. They can think about causality. They can think about correlation. They can make sure that things that we care about are thought and discussed, and we advocate for those policies. There is complete lack of advocacy from the tech sector on big social issues as new innovations come in. Why there's a complete lack of advocacy? Because women's voices is not heard, because we don't participate, because we disengage for so many reasons. Some are cultural, some are organizational, some are political, some are economic. There's so many issues we need to tackle to make sure we have equal voice here. But going back to the issues of what is the impact of AI, we don't really know because we don't understand causality. We don't know what's the impact 20, 30, 40 years from now. We understand a few things. We understand that we are going to teach AI, these complex algorithms, to make decisions for us. Now, we are coming from unconscious biases. We have unconscious biases in different countries, with different genders, with different people, different socioeconomic levels. So a lot of that is going to start to go inside the algorithms we create. Where is the governance around that? If I hired, right, the last 10 years, most of my successful hires were male, I'm going to teach that. And then when they, when the system, the algorithm looks at a female candidate, it says, you know what, wasn't a successful hire, I'm going to move because my unconscious bias from the data is coming through. So that is something we need to think about. The governance and the trust. What is trust in the system? How do you define what trust is? There's some regulation coming in for AI in Europe, even China and Russia is looking at regulation. US and the West is starting to see, how do you regulate this space? We can't even regulate the dark web. And is it regulatable? Because as I said, if you think about a culture of Silicon Valley, it's designed around information wants to be free, anti-security liberalization. So how do you begin to govern? How do you ensure that it's not biased? How do you ensure that we have security and privacy? You think about cyber wars, with now human intelligence, human judgment being part of that. Now we're moving to machines and drones, and they're making a decision. How do we control that? So I think there is this a bit of pessimism about how do you govern and control. And then there is a bit of optimism, which I would say if we manage this space right, instead of control the two species as human machine coming together, and we can co-evolve and we can reach singularity, we can become one, where human consciousness, artificial consciousness, both of it in one, can begin to make the right decisions for humanity. That's what I'd like to see. I think that if we have engagement and involvement and advocacy, that's the space we can end up, where artificial intelligence can have great positive impact in human life as we evolve to the next species that I think it's about time for us to evolve to. So let me stop there.
Thank you, Ati. Just a note for all of the attendees, at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session, but now if you want, you can start to put in your questions so that we can filter through those and get to those towards the end of this. So Kate, one interesting thing that I find with your new role at UNFCCC is that you cover a ton. You go from leading finance, human resources, ICT, and in an organization that is, of course, top of mind and around climate change, which is one of the highest priorities that's affecting all of us on this planet. What opportunities does this portfolio of work that you have and across your organization, do you see that this provides for women in tech? Do you think that this amplifies the need for more women in tech, or provide more opportunities in a way?
Thanks. Good question. I think it's clearly more opportunities. There's no tech project that doesn't involve financing, and there's no finance project that doesn't involve technology. Yeah, so what I find really interesting about the portfolio, human resources is the most challenging, but the finance and the IT are really opportunities, again, for when we talk about, diversity of people, but diversity of skills. Yeah, so there's colleagues in IT, maybe not so many women, but there's quite a few in finance. Yeah, so is there opportunity to those for shift, but also to have this, sharing of experience and skills so that people can succeed. Help the women in IT succeed by understanding what is a good business model and how are we financing things and how are we planning. And then similarly on the finance side, when they're looking to, whatever, scale up a system, scale over a system, where are the people in technology? So there's the broad portfolio, there's more opportunities, I think, for women in all of those areas. but also for women to have more of an alliance from areas that maybe it's not right in tech. Again, our numbers aren't great there, but in the climate change secretariat, we're at parity in most other areas. But really that all these other skills that we need to succeed, as I was saying, not just to go up, but at your project level, your communications plan. This diversity allows me to look and see incredible people, men and women, that can come together to support each other. So that's the opportunity. I also think that's kind of been my organized ambition, was kind of always to have this finance and IT piece together so that people weren't trying to explain to each other what was happening. I actually kind of organically am there. So I think that's good. The other real opportunity, I think, with the broad portfolio is for people to have confidence. You meet a lot of people that say like, oh, I'm not really a techie. But yet, I mean, we're walking around with computers in our hands and we've got things on our head and we got things on our wrists. So we actually, even when we're not in specifically the tech space, I think to have the confidence when you're in the other areas, whether it's, working with, carbon credits or working in finance, you're doing a lot with technology, and to understand that you have that skill, but also you can support other men and women there, I think is important. And then I think maybe finally it's what we're trying to do. I mean, as the climate change secretariat, it's our role really is around, is the world aware of climate change, and then how are governments engaging to make policy change, and then also on the ground change. And it's similarly, I think, how we're working right here as leaders and innovators. It's not just, I need to get my job done, but getting it done should make it a better place to be. Yeah. And so since I have this broad portfolio, I feel that I have an opportunity, not just in one tech zone, but in many areas to say, this is an interesting place to work and our contributions are valuable. But again, it's a collective. Yeah. It's the finance person supporting the IT project. It's the IT person supporting the people in finance to understand how technology works. So again, I think this organized kind of way to go forward, use diversity for sort of collective progress, but also ideally to enjoy where we're at and make it an enjoyable space for others.
Thanks, Kate. And I always find it interesting as well when you do find women that say, I don't want to be in tech, and you think you live and breathe tech. Tech is the foundation of everything we do socially, how you book reservations at restaurants, to all the businesses, new startups. Tech enables everything. And I remember, listening to Laura a few times in different events, and I love the aspect and passion around demystifying tech. And you're certainly one that you didn't study tech, and you found yourself a career of walking through so many different aspects, from marketing to being a CEO to driving so much innovative change. Now, with your new role at Texas A&M, and again, as the first African on the board, what are your personal goals in this new role, and what is your desired impact for this role?
So, Kate, you've actually used the word that drives my life today, impact. As I've grown in my career through the years, and I think about the networks I've made, the experience I have, the hurdles I've had to jump over, I look back and I think about it and I'm like, I don't see how I cannot help others not go through that painful journey, but also learn new lessons as they're going through their careers. And I figured, I think the best thing I can do for myself, or what would give me satisfaction today, is impact. But how does technology tie back to that? In the world today, and even we saw that during the COVID period, we all had to be agile. Okay, if you are used to getting up and going to work every day, that's not going to happen. Look at us today. We're having a virtual session where we're talking about amazing stuff using technology. And this agility is very important. Now, as you're going through your career in your life, and especially as a woman, you must learn to be agile. You must learn how to pick up new skills as you go along and walk your journey. And for me, this is the only way, as you're walking your journey, you're going to have an impact on the people that you interact with every day, with regards to what you have to deliver in the workplace, what you've been given as your KPIs, with regards to social life, being a mother or a wife or whatever it is. Now, for me at Texas A&M University, this is where new skills, impact, agility comes in. Okay. We just had Kate talking about finance and technology. Okay. You talked about myself, marketing and technology. I'm not a tech person. I studied economics and I found myself doing my career was around marketing and technology, demystifying technology. But this is because of the fact that I have been agile. I've had the interest. I'm passionate about seeing what can technology do next. How do I demystify the language of technology and make people understand the impact and the importance of technology today, okay? And how you can use it for the good, tech for good. So with regards to Texas A&M, it's around learning new skills that will prepare you or position you for the next level or your next job or your next position. What is it that you want to do? Can you coin something between your tech skills and do some marketing? If you think about it, the buzzword today, especially around marketing, is digital marketing. What do we think digital marketing is? Okay. Digital marketing is you doing your marketing using technology, doing it online. But what more can you do around that? Women in leadership, that's another thing that I focus on at Texas and A&M. How do we, as women in tech, apply or learn new leadership skills that are relevant today? We talk about Gen Z, we talk about all these, all these other generations that are coming up behind us. Listen, it's time for us to give space and let them come up. But how do we mentor and make sure they get to the next level with regards to their careers in the environment that they're used to thriving in? Yeah, we were the 8 to 5s. They are the remote workers. So how does the current curriculum make sure that it is dynamic and absorbing the new workforce that is coming up and is understanding their way of working? We're in the fourth industrial revolution, but how much does the current curriculum that is being pushed out to students today making sense to them? I think very little of it makes sense to them. You find that when they get out of university or college, they have to start learning new things in the workplace. So my passion with regards to Texas A&M is to make sure that whoever is coming out of school or whatever curriculum is being taught in our academia or in the institutions today makes sense and is the right fit for the fourth industrial revolution, especially with the technology aspect to it. And so that we don't have the attitude where we think you can separate the two. I'm sorry. Here we are today. Technology is a core part of our lives. Whatever career path you decide to take, you will have to embrace technology and be agile at any time, anywhere, using any device. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. I think that is so incredibly important to have that education and learning on how to advance and understand the different cultural aspects and just the different values that we see in technology spaces. Now, one thing that I've seen in certain organizations, both on the private and public side within the UN and others, is sometimes there's not a clear path ahead for women, or it can be difficult on many levels. Now, Ati, as you have worked in various private sector organizations, you are executive director of a nonprofit of CIOs, and of course, worked at the UN. Do you find that that women want to advance in technology? Are they afraid of that path? And what aspects do you think organizations should do, or what systems should we put in place to make those paths more accessible?
Thank you, and that's a great question. We do have this, what I call geek mythology in our sector. I have two 15-year-olds, and I remember one day one of them came home and said, "Mom, someone called me nerd because I was wearing glasses." And I said, "You're lucky they called you nerd, because nerds rule the world." But we do have this geek mythology that, and media contributes tremendously to it, which is this how women look, that being in technology is not fun, it's not cool, it's not interesting. Schools don't educate properly women around technology and math. We lose girls around age, I would say 10, 11 on math, and math is too difficult. So we have fundamental issues. We have cultural issues, and we have family issues. Right? Within family, we encourage the boys a lot more. to participate in tech versus the girls. So we've talked for a long time about getting more women in tech, and we keep talking and we get nowhere because there's something we are not doing right. Right. And that's something that we're doing right is that it's not a problem. It's not an issue only in the corporations. It's an issue in the family, in schools, in education, in media. It's every level that we need to change. Now, having said that, and I want to go back to our earlier conversation about artificial intelligence. The impact of AI, if you look at globally, the youth unemployment is about 50%. Most of our people, mostly men in the West or in Middle East or Africa in the South, are in sectors like manufacturing, farming, military, transportation. All of those jobs are being modernized, automated, put in machines. These are men jobs, men jobs. The jobs that we do at home, right? The services, we're very good at it as women. Those are being created, the service jobs. So what you're going to see actually, you're going to see this shift of increased unemployment for men in those sectors, and it decreased. And we need a major reskilling of the men. And then where more women are coming in because they're moving into the services sector that is being created. So we are seeing this shift. And that creates an opportunity for women where now they can begin to learn, and all of these jobs require technology. You just can't opt out anymore. So that's just one thing that I would say. And I go back to the original question about the path. The path is never a straight line. This is, you know, I tell the story, you know, I studied physics and engineering, and what's the first thing you learn, right? The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Well, you know, that's not really true in an organization. It's not true in your career. It's not true in real life. Your path is a zigzag, and you fall, you zigzag, you fall, you go right, you go left. You make options, you have choices. And I don't know if we raise girls to think that way, right? We raise girls to think, we put so many dogmatic views on our girls, you know, and I think Laura talked about, tell your story, you know, begin to speak up. Marietta and Kate, they talked about confidence, taking risk. I mean, these are important attributes. We kill these in our girls. Early on, we kill it. You know, we say, you know what? You have no body, you know, cover it up, especially if you think I was raised I was born in Iran, you know, you think about cover your body, you have no body, it doesn't exist, and be quiet, be agreeable, you know, don't talk till someone talks to you, be nice, duty over desire, your family, your kids, over desire, passion that you may have. Be flexible, be elastic. I mean, there's just this kind of messages that we put in girls. Then we said, well, you need to succeed in a career, in a male environment with all those kind of traits I never taught you, and I told you not to do. Then we say, why can't women move up? Why can't we retain women in leadership positions? Because then if you get a leadership, if you're a woman leader, and there's lots of studies on this, that successful women are not agreeable. And it goes against our thinking women need to be agreeable and nice, right? So now we have this conflict of what a successful woman is. So I share this because I think the path is there. It requires work on everybody's behalf, including our fathers and brothers and sons. Because that's how we make successful societies, if we, both women and men, participate in the economy and in society and politics. So I hope we begin to make some fundamental changes in that space. Thank you.
Yes, Kate, jump in. I see that finger going.
Yes, just brilliant, I think, Addie, about how we're raised. We all have different backgrounds. I had a huge advantage. I have 5 brothers, so I grew up in a very male environment, but there were many things along the way that weren't as fortifying as the home front. And I still see this as an issue today in where we work, even in an organization with gender parity, yeah? That if we consider that we have made it, yeah, and we want all of these other women and men to have these interesting zigzagging careers, I think the role, and then this is when I look at why is it taking so long to get more of us here? And I think part of that is of wherever you are sitting. Yeah. And again, going to this confidence and how do we help the person who is either never brought into the room or not put on the, whatever, onto the Zoom. And that's something that we need to, I think, to commit to through mentorship and leading through example, but and to hold others accountable to that just by having women sit in roles does not mean that you have empowered them. It does not mean that we have achieved what we can for a better organization or a better world. And I think, where I'm thankful that I have an organization that has great parity. I do see in many environments where I've been that there's much more that needs to go on for that woman and other women to enjoy and contribute fully to where they're at. So again, we're kind of educated and experience one thing, and then we're told to do something else when we get to the next space. We need to be aware of it and look at ourselves and each other, and how do we help those people succeed where they're at, including each other at the leadership level and below. Thanks.
Thank you, Kate. And I know we're getting super close to the end of the hour. I know just been told that this will not implode if we do go over the hour. But in the interest of time, I'm going to first commit all of us to something. And all of us, meaning myself and the amazing panelists here. We've talked a lot today about mentorship and how important that is to bring your fellow women along with you, to fill those gaps, to demystify technology, to keep our digital citizens safe, our kids safe. So as a follow-up for this, I would like to make all of us commit to mentoring another individual. If you are attending this and listening to this now, you can please email, and I think Suzanne will put the email address there, but it is uniwd2023@outlook.com. And the first 5 people that email that would like to join one of us into a mentoring session, we will commit to that. And I think that's something that we want to make sure that this isn't just a 1-hour panel that we talk about things and tell stories, but we proactively engage with the communities, and especially this community that we're talking to today, further, and keep that movement going. Now, for those, I apologize, we starting to go over a little bit. For those who can stay, please do. There are a couple questions on the Q&A. Yes, Marietta.
Sorry, I was just going to say, if there's anybody under the age of 30, in addition to the 5, I'll take 2.
Ooh, she's raising the stakes. I like this. Okay. So the first question here, I think, actually goes into some of the mentoring sessions that we probably may talk about. What values should the current generation of women leaders bring into the space to make it safer and more fulfilling for those that follow them? I would actually like to ask Marietta that one, if that's okay.
So safer and more fulfilling. I'd probably offer two thoughts here. One is one that says, we have to be comfortable in our own skin. I think there's a lot of fear of whether you're either appearing to be brought forward because you're a woman, and therefore that's the only reason you're being brought forward, but also because we don't speak up enough, like we've other panelists have mentioned. And I think one of them is to be confident in yourself, to know 2 things. One is you have a right to be there. and other people around you have a right, should know that you're qualified, you're smart, and you have something to offer. And I think the second one is to simply understand that, you know, it's be curious. It's not just about what you know and what you bring to the table, but be interested in what other people are bringing to the table. And I think I found a lot of IT people, especially to Kate's earlier point about people, if when IT people are in a space where they're non-IT people, they're not interested in the other stuff. They're not interested in understanding supply. They're not necessarily interested in understanding how program works. They wait for the part where we're talking about the system. Then they kind of come on. And part of it is to say, no, actually be interested in program. Be interested in how the mechanics of the car work and so on. And then people will be interested in IT, and you will actually be part of a team and not just the techie. And I think once we begin to do more of that, we begin to be not the spanner welders that we are known to be, but we actually begin to be, you know, part of the conversation, and therefore more comfortable not only in what we're doing, but also in who we're supporting.
Great. Thank you, Marietta. And then the next question is about upskilling and what are the most tech neutral skills that women in IT should be learning? Laura, as this is in your wheelhouse, would you mind responding to that?
I think, so there's just one or two things I wanted to add to what Marietta talked about. I think some of the things that one should look at as you're getting into leadership as a woman is first, be self-critical. It's one of the most difficult things for a human being to do, but it's the only way you can learn. Okay, so take feedback positively, especially when it's negative feedback. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is learn how to unlearn, because the only way you can learn new things is when you get rid of the old things that don't matter anymore, that are redundant. Okay, and the final thing is be clear about how you communicate. Always be clear about how you communicate. Don't leave anyone in doubt around what you are trying to say, especially as you're trying to be a leader and getting into the whole leadership issue. Now, what are some of the things? And I think that kind of ties back to the question that was asked. I think it's important when you're trying to get into this whole leadership thing, some of the tech neutral skills you must learn is how do you communicate your super technical skills in a clear language that everybody understands. That everybody understands. And I think this is where we fall apart. How is it relevant to what people are trying to find out? If you are in a supply situation, as Marietta has mentioned, can you be able to tell that story in a way that the person who's trying to engage you can understand that technology is not about being a cost, but it's about partnership, right? Can you tell that story in that way? Okay. If somebody is having a challenge, can you be able to unpack that challenge and give them the space to try and fix it without pointing a finger and come back to you with what they've learned? And then you can add to that. That is maturity. And I think it is very important. And then there's something I believe in called your advisory board in your life, in your personal life as a woman. You will have your professional one, you will have your social one, you will have your financial one, whatever it is. But these are people around you who can be open with you around where your life is going. And how many times do you do checkpoints with them? Finally, the one thing that I believe in is you must have something that's driving your life. I stopped doing New Year's resolutions, I think about 3-4 years ago, because it was a fad, and I realized, listen, now I'm in a different stage in my life. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And I drive my life with what I call power words. And that's what drives me for the year. So for any woman who's trying to grow in a tech neutral way and get new skills. The self-critical part will help you identify your power words that will drive you to the next level. In my case, my power words were impact, boundaries, communication, and being grateful for everything that somebody does for me. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Laura, I don't think we could have collectively done a better summary on this entire panel than that just now. And I'm lucky that you're on my personal advisory board and always give me very honest feedback, which sometimes I don't like, but I always take. At that, I know we're 7 minutes over. I am incredibly grateful to know all of you women, incredibly grateful that we've had a very good turnout today. I appreciate you allowing me to assign you the commitment of having a mentor or mentee. And I just want to thank you. This has been a wonderful hour plus. I've learned a lot. I continue to admire you four women. And then just a reminder for everybody on the call to please email uniwd2023@outlook.com and we'll get you set up to with a mentor. So at that, I would just like to thank you again. Enjoy International Women's Day tomorrow. This is, once this is produced after the recording, we'll send out links on other social media and UN sites. Thank you all. Have a great International Women's Day.